listening to the We Are Worship USA podcast.
I love it when it's that organic family. Everyone's bringing something.
I just at one point made a decision that the kind of worship leader I want to be is one that doesn't really separate the stage and the private times with the Lord.
To see Jesus Christ, and we're going to worship Him, and that's what this whole thing is all about. It's just about Him.
Hey everybody, welcome to the We Are Worship podcast. My name is Morgan Shirey, and I am your co-host today with Wisdom Moon. What's up, Wisdom?
A couple of episodes ago, we were talking about like I need to be more hyper.
Yeah.
Like I think we were on Instagram Live.
Yes.
And then I shared the blog or the podcast in our We Are Worship USA Facebook group, and that was like a question like, does Wisdom need to be more hyper? And somebody said, well, I think Morgan's hyper enough for the both of you.
Yes, sirree.
You're a good balance to Morgan's. Man, I think every time, the last couple of times that we've been podcasting, my alerts go off like
You're
for the
an
next
important
meeting.
person.
So I'm gonna turn that off now. Sorry. But yeah, I think we're a good balance. I need to be more, mellow so you can be more hyper.
Okay, I mean,
think that's what it is.
Sure. I guess people need balance, right?
There's got to be a balance.
Because they might get turned off if it's like too much, Morgan.
Yeah. It's kind of like Star Wars. There's a balance, in the universe.
Okay, I don't really
the dark
watch
side
Star Wars, so don't hate me, but I don't really know anything about Star Wars.
I don't know if that's true about Star Wars because I don't know a whole lot about Star Wars, but it sounds
in today's podcast, we're talking about things we don't know.
Yes. Yeah, but we do know what's on WeAreWorship.com, hopefully.
Yeah, and we got some free songs because what's better than free stuff, right?
Nothing. Really.
Nothing, exactly. So this week we've got No Greater Love, How Marvelous from Greg Sykes.
Mm-hmm.
It's the free song of the week, and it actually released today. So if you've downloaded it like before today, Friday, then you basically got an exclusive sneak peek.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. But you can download the chord chart too. So if you head over to WeAreWorship.com, download the chord chart and the MP3 for free. And it's kind of like a hymn-like song. Yeah. And I feel like people are really going to latch on to it because, one, it's congregational. Yeah. It's easy to sing. And it's one of those songs that I think like an older crowd and a younger crowd could get into.
Yeah. If you have an ensemble or a choir, like they can get into it.
Oh, that would be so cool. If somebody does that, they should send us a video.
Yeah.
That would be really, really cool. And we can share it on our socials.
Yeah.
And then for our hymn of the month, we have Once for All from Paul Balash. And he actually has like an ultimate collection of his songs that came out today.
A lot of releases today.
Yeah. So
Happy release
We Are
day.
Worship is on top of it. You know what I'm saying? So you can head over to We Are Worship and get the song Once for All from Paul Balash. It's also like a hymn-like song that I think, again, a lot of churches will really like. Of course, like we want to provide songs that the church will enjoy and can latch on to. That's what we're all about. So
yeah, it's about helping your congregation sing.
Yes, and sing out loud.
And engage. Yeah.
Engage with the Holy Spirit.
If you're wondering how maybe you missed the Greg Sykes, exclusive, early access to the song, all you got to do is head over to WeAreWorship.com, and it literally takes you less than a minute to sign up. So every song page you go to, if you're not signed in, it will have a form there for you to sign up to join our site and be a part of the community. We have over, I think, 91,000 members now on the site.
It's a lot of people.
Globally, so
share it with your friends, share it with your team, tell them to come on and join the community.
What is going on? You're very sing-songy today.
Oh, yeah, all week. All week.
Awesome. Well, today I'm really excited to have my good friend David Santistevan as a guest. We've known each other for a long time. We've known each other through social media and both of us podcasting for a while. So it was a real treat to get to have him be on the podcast and talk about just his experience and He's just a wealth of a lot of wisdom.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah. He has a lot of knowledge. You ever want to use that word?
No, I don't think it doesn't fit as good, you know?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you could also, as you're listening, be praying for our team. We're going to be at a writer's retreat as you're listening to this. We release our episodes on Wednesday, so we'll be like actually at the retreat while you listen to this if you download it and listen to it the same day. And we're going to be with, is it like 30 songwriters?
Yeah.
From all
30.
over the world. And we're going to be just seeking God's presence and praying, and they're going to be writing some songs. So it's going to be just a real special time.
Yeah, and we're hopefully going to capture some video and some video for our vlog. And if you're not familiar with the vlog, it releases every other Sunday. So you should check it out. There's a blog post that goes along with it. So head over to We Are Worship TV on YouTube.
I love that it releases on Sundays because like Sunday night worship leaders are exhausted and tired, and I think a lot of them are just wanting to like watch something and relax, and this is a great option.
Zone out and just like watch something funny.
Yeah.
Because it features me.
Well, thanks for listening, and if you get a chance, please leave us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts as they call it now, and that will help other worship leaders discover our podcast. Hey, I'm here today with David Santistevan.
That's not how you say my last name, bro.
I know. I was waiting for a reaction.
That's awesome, though. I love that.
You just looked really offended. You're like, I thought we knew each other.
Well, I was like, man, does he not know how to say my name?
No,
because it gets butchered every day.
Oh yeah, I bet.
So
it's kind of become a thing for me to like purposely mispronounce people's last names on the podcast. So I was trying to get your reaction by like doing it some crazy pronunciation.
I love it.
Dude, your name, Santistevan.
There you go. Dude, I wish I had your name. Like it's impossible to mess up your name.
Yeah. The bad side is sometimes people think I'm a girl. So yeah.
Really?
Yeah. The other day I was like weird. At the eye doctor's like waiting room, and this lady comes out and she's like, "Miss Moon," and I'm the only one in the waiting room. I'm like, "Do you see a girl in here?"
I don't get that. I don't know how you think that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that happens to me not as often anymore, but it does still happen once in a while. Especially like through email. Like we're like, "Oh, I thought you were a girl." Like, nope. Sorry to disappoint you.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
But we've known each other for a while, and David has an awesome podcast and a blog, and truly I feel like you're an encourager of worship pastors, and you just pour into worship pastors and all those different avenues. And I think, just people see your heart in that and they're drawn to that. So I want to just thank you for what you've faithfully been doing, over the years.
Yeah, man. I loved, doing what I get to do. I love being a worship pastor, and being able to encourage other worship leaders and worship pastors is such an honor, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would love for you to start out by telling us where you are, and because the rumor going around is that you quit worship leading and you said, "I'm not doing this worship leading thing anymore." And you're like, "I'm going to just go explore kind of like the prodigal son, I guess, like, so tell us about what you're doing.
Turn my back on the Father. Not entirely true, but to a certain extent. So about 6 months ago, my family and we set out on the road. So we are currently living in an RV and traveling the country. No, I didn't give up worship leading. I'm still leading worship, but we decided to take this leap as a family where it's sort of combination family adventure ministry trip. So we're connecting with churches as we travel and doing workshops and leading worship. But we're living in an RV. So we have a motorhome. And so, yeah, we left in August, and currently right now we're in Yuma, Arizona, but we've been all over the country so far. And, man, it's just been really, really great for us. You know, we're spending a lot of time as a family, living in some close quarters here, but, it's just been such a rewarding time for us. You know, just as a family, and also just to connect with so many churches, you know, to connect with worship leaders and to see what other teams are doing just around the country has been super fun. So, so that's what we're doing.
That sounds like a blast. And I've had friends like who did the RV like life, and I think it really, from what I've heard and stuff, it really like gets your family to really, you know, draw closer to each other like nothing else could, you know, because you're literally like sleeping on top of each other. Right?
It's not quite that bad, but you know, we all have our own beds, but it is definitely, you're living in close quarters. But it's nice because the world sort of becomes your backyard, you know? So kind of rather than being just in one place, nothing against being in one place, you know? But this season for us is great because we can just pick up our home and move it to where we want to go or where God's telling us to go. And so that's been like super fun. So we've gotten really close, and just being able to take the kids on this adventure to see a lot of the country is really cool too. So,
So when you do connect with churches and like maybe do training or lead worship at different churches, do you like contact them ahead of time, or are they contacting you? How does that work?
Yeah. So what I did is, through my newsletter and my network, I just kind of threw out there, you know, an email saying, hey, this is what we're doing. We'd love to, as we're traveling, we'd love to connect with your church and your team to come and encourage you to do a workshop, to lead worship, to speak, whatever it is. And then just kind of got some, you know, set up a little survey thing or whatever online, and people just filled out their info for the church. And cool. So then I contacted them and just went from there. Yeah. So, it's mainly through that, and then just through relationships and as we go along. So, yeah. So
have you completely left your position at your church, or is that something you're going back to?
I'm not totally sure. I'm not on staff at Allison Park anymore, but I'm still heavily involved and invested there. Yeah. You know, that's the challenge with like a new season, you know, like, you know, Wisdom with you and All About Worship, you invest so many years in kind of one thing, and then God moves you onto something else. It's like that can be tough to let go of something. But to be able to pass that off to other leaders is really great. So I'm still really involved. You know, we have a new recording coming out like in a week or so, and you know, whenever I'm back home, I'm still there. You know, leading worship on occasion, and still staying in touch with the team there, but not so much on staff anymore or doing regular stuff. I've sort of transitioned from that. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It sounds like a new season of stepping out in faith and going, hey, I'm ready for an adventure, God. What's next?
Yeah.
That's an exciting sign.
Totally what it is, man. Yep.
Yeah. So you've seen not just at your own church, you know, working with your worship team, but you've seen like by traveling to different churches and just over the years of, you know, even podcasting and interviewing a lot of people, you've seen a lot of different, I would say, like approaches to rehearsing as a worship team. And I would love for you to just share some of that with us and what you've seen work and what you've seen maybe not work as well, and how you approach it personally.
Yeah. So rehearsal is that moment in the week where, you know, we've all been in really bad rehearsal settings, you know, where it's like there's just no plan, where nobody knows what's going on. It's just a mess, you know. And I think what I've seen in other churches and through my own mistakes is that's the case. Whenever you create a plan for what you want to see happen, for what you want to accomplish, it goes so much better, Like I remember those rehearsals where it's like everybody shows up on Thursday night or whatever, and the worship leader's like, so what are we going to do this week? Or like, you're almost figuring out songs. Like nobody shows up really ready. There's not really a plan. And I think what happens with a lot of teams is they get in this rut of just sort of maintaining the status quo or doing what they've always done, or it just becomes like, hey, let's just get songs done, and there's no sort of bigger vision for what is our team culture, and what are we building here? I think that's what transitioned for me is I wanted to have a worship team. When I started out as a worship leader, I wanted to have a worship team that people wanted to be a part of, where they actually couldn't wait to come to rehearsal because it was a great atmosphere, and it's not because, they're going to get paid or anything. And I know there's some churches that pay their musicians, and then, most churches out there, it's you work with volunteers, but either way, it wasn't like, let's create a culture where people are coming because they're getting paid, but let's create a culture where they want to be there because of the community. They want to be there because of they're growing and developing, and it's just like a fun place to be, right? Yeah. And there's vision there. So like when everybody is like climbing a mountain together, whenever you're doing something together for the kingdom, that builds so much unity and momentum, So that's kind of what I wanted to build in my team. So look at rehearsals as more than just getting songs done. Look at it as a way to develop your team and to disciple your team, to build culture, So I don't know if you want me to go into some like specifics about rehearsal, but
I would say, that's really just great insight, just what you shared there. Like we could end the podcast now, and I got a lot out of that one. But I think also just like before you get into the practicals, even explaining really briefly what the difference is between practicing and rehearsing.
Yeah, so I think that's a huge transition. Like I said, when I was young, you showed up at rehearsal to figure out what you were doing, right? And it was almost this passive experience where it was like, worship leader, tell me what to do, you know? Worship leader, like, just kind of tell me the plan. But it's so much better. Rehearsal is so much more effective when the practice happens kind of on a personal level, where as a musician, you are owning your role. Where you're saying, I'm going to show up to this rehearsal and I'm going to over-deliver. I'm going to over-deliver with my attitude. Like, I'm going to come and I'm not going to be a diva. I'm not going to need to be the center of attention. I'm going to come and I'm going to serve my church. I'm going to serve my worship leader. I'm going to serve this team. Right. And what that means is, as a musician, like, you want to be like super prepared, right? Yeah. Listening to those songs, like, writing down your parts, like just coming into the rehearsal knowing what you're doing. I think a lot of people think, as long as I'm ready on Sunday, I'm good to go. Yeah. But I would challenge musicians, like, let's be ready to go at rehearsal. Let's have as much details planned out with our instrument and our parts so that we're ready. And I challenge the worship leaders with that too, to take on that responsibility to prepare your team, right? Yeah. Because if you're picking out songs the day before rehearsal, you can't expect to have a great rehearsal. Right. It all comes back to that plan and giving your team the tools that they need to succeed and to show up ready. And even that right there is a way to build culture where I want to be a part of that. Like, I don't want to be a part of something that's disorganized. Like, I want to be a part of something where I can really contribute and I can really grow. So practice being, that's a personal thing. Work on your stuff. And then in a rehearsal setting, that's a time, man, to really flow. That's a time to like gel together as a team to worship together, you shouldn't be saying, what are the chords at rehearsal? And sometimes, that can happen. But for the most part, you want that stuff to be behind you. So you get there in rehearsal. I mean, just envision this. Everybody at rehearsal is ready to go. Worship leader, you're like, I wish that was the case. I would love that, because you can accomplish so much more. You can practice like flowing and spontaneous worship together, right? You can practice different elements of the service and transitions, and you can actually worship together and go for it. And you can work on your blend vocally and as a band, learning how to because music is such a it's such a communal thing, right? Where you want to connect with the other people on the stage and become one in heart and in skill and unity, So that's what rehearsal is. I don't remember who said it, but it's always stuck with me, that practice is personal and rehearsal is relational. I didn't come up with that, but that's just something that I always say, because that's what creates a great rehearsal setting.
That's awesome. I've never heard that quote before. That's good. You should just claim it. Just claim it.
Name it and claim it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, part of the worship leader or the worship pastor's role is to make sure that the worship team has the tools to practice from home, right? So if they don't have the tools, then they can't really practice. There's a limit to how much they can do on their own, if they don't have those tools. Like what key are they singing the song in? And, what version of the song are they trying to, really, model after? So.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think for a worship leader, whether it's you or an admin that you have, just make sure you're getting ahead in your planning.
Yeah.
So what I always try to do is try to be at least 6 weeks ahead. A lot of times 2 months or more with the schedule, but with the songs and stuff, try to get to that a month ahead, 6 weeks, and then reviewing, I don't know, most people probably use Planning Center, but reviewing that system that you use to make sure, do I have all the chord charts in there?
Yeah.
Or MP3s in there, or YouTube links or whatever it is with the proper versions.
Yeah.
A lot of times what I'll do too is go into the notes and Planning Center and give musicians specific instructions, if there's something that I want them to do, so get as detailed as you can. And that way you're, like you said, you're giving your team the tools that they need to succeed. So
yeah. And I think what's awesome about the day we live in now is there's so many resources out there. If you wanted to show your drummer how to play drums for a specific song, there's probably a video on YouTube for it,
Yep.
So I think more than ever, there's really not an excuse to be able to find those resources for your team. And even if if you're a volunteer worship leader and you don't have that kind of time, maybe you have somebody that's appointed, like you're saying, an administrator or somebody that can be in charge of that, to really help the team win.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing right there. A lot of, you're probably listening to this right now and you're saying I hate administration. I hate doing that stuff. And that's okay. Sometimes you just have to buckle down and do it, because you might not have the team or the people to take on that kind of stuff. But it's something to pray about and to look around your team and to say, okay, who on my team loves administration? Because what you might hate to do could be somebody else's call, could be somebody else's gift. And I think a lot of worship leaders hesitate to delegate because they don't want to just throw their task list on other people.
Yeah.
But what you're not so good at and what you may hate to do is somebody else's from God, and they're just waiting for you to ask them. You might hate scheduling and Planning Center, but there's somebody on your team where they would find their purpose in life.
Yeah.
If you just told them.
That's their love language.
Yeah, exactly. Planning Center, administration, but seriously, just kind of look around and say, who can I develop? Who can I bring in to handle this where it'll take some stuff off my plate so that I can focus on bigger picture stuff, but it also gives them, a ministry role and it's what they're great at, what they're gifted at to do,
Yeah. That's awesome. So let's say a worship team and a worship leader now is scheduling out the team way in advance, and also, picking out the songs maybe a month out. And then they show up to rehearsal. What is the best way to approach that limited time that you have with the team during the midweek or early Sunday morning before the services?
Yeah, what I would say first off with your rehearsal is to, number one, connect. So create an environment where people can connect with one another. I've always tried to, in my rehearsals, to create sort of like a light-hearted, fun atmosphere where, whether it's kind of telling jokes or poking fun, just so that you're like having a good time together where people can relax, because people are super nervous a lot of times in rehearsal, especially if they're new to the team, and just kind of creating that environment where it's like, hey, this is fun. Like, we're having fun together. Like, you want to get stuff done, but you don't want to sort of be like this worship dictator that's just like demanding you just to get songs done in rehearsal. But this whole connection, like laughing together, praying together, doing some kind of devo together, whether that's reading some scripture or a book or something, just kind of creating just something where it's like that brief encouragement. Like, you don't want to like preach an hour-long sermon, but just having that quick time to just connect around God's word, And second, I would say to worship. So number one would be connect. Number two, worship, because I think it's kind of funny how a lot of worship teams don't worship together.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, we're doing this new called Reckless Love. Let's just kind of run through this. Then we got 2 other songs. We're just going to kind of run through these, then we'll be done, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're running through songs, but you're not building a culture of worship. And I think rehearsal is probably the best place to build culture. Not that you don't want to have other events or other things that you're doing, but building that worship culture. Your team is gonna they're gonna become what you they're gonna become what you cast vision towards, and what you value. That's what they're gonna value. So this can practically speaking, this can be like practicing spontaneous worship. This can be like, hey guys, here's a chord progression we're going to play. Let's do the 1-6-5-4 in the key of D, and let's just kind of begin to flow together. Let's sing an organized song, but then let's vocalists. I want you to sort of start to sing out, right? And let's worship together. So take those songs. Sure, there's like, you got to work out specific parts with your band, but don't just stop there. Learn how to worship with those songs in a rehearsal setting, because you can't expect to like lead worship on Sunday if you're not worshiping together on Thursday. And learning, it's almost like that old Brother Lawrence book, like The Practice of the Presence of God. Like, you want to practice his presence in rehearsal so that it doesn't feel foreign on Sunday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't just want to know chords and songs. We want to know his presence. Yeah. And so I think it's important to like build that worshiping atmosphere in your rehearsal.
That's good.
And then, so that'd be number one, connect. Number two, worship. And number three, I'd maybe say like produce, where it's like, you got to get stuff done. People want to be a part of something that is well organized and you're actually accomplishing something. I'm probably not going to want to be a part of a worship team if we just kind of sit around in a circle and sing Kumbaya for 2 hours. That's why, like, if all you're doing is that connect stuff, but you're not really getting stuff done, you're not growing in your music, you're not growing as a team, then that's an issue. That's why you got to kind of hold all these in balance. So what I like to do as far as this produce point is to say, like, okay, what's my main goal of this rehearsal? A lot of times that's like, okay, I have a brand new song that we need to learn. Okay. Maybe the other songs in the set we've done before, so we can kind of go over those briefly, but what's the main idea here? Like I said, you don't want to have 30 songs that you're trying to get through in a rehearsal. Have that main goal. And other things too, like practicing your transitions. A lot of teams don't do that. I was at a church here in Southern California. I wasn't leading worship, but just attending. They did an incredible job with their transitions. I could tell that they specifically rehearsed those transitions from the intro to after the first song into the second song into the third song.
Yeah.
Even when the pastor came up to pray, the band had a plan for how they were supporting that moment, you know? So practicing those transitions, I would venture to say some of you out there need to spend more time on that than you are on songs.
Yeah.
Because I found a lot of times the best worship happens in between the songs.
Yeah.
You know, when the song is over and you're just kind of letting it breathe, you know, or there's other things happening and you're working on those transitions. So think about the end product. You know, I hate to say product, but think about with the end in mind, plan with the end in mind. Like what do we want this whole service to look like, and then rehearse that. And then last thing I'd say with that is just to steward your volunteers' time. You know, I kind of hinted at that. If you say your rehearsal is going to be an hour and a half, don't go 3 hours. You know, you know, do what you're going to say, even if you don't get through everything. You know, end on time, honor people's schedules, and I think what that does over time is it builds trust with your team, so that they continue to want to be a part of the culture because they know they're not being like abused as volunteers. You know what I mean? So connect, worship, and produce. Focus on that sort of end product of your service.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think my goal when I would do like worship rehearsals is to like try to end early. So it's like a pleasant surprise. Hey, like, you can go home 10 minutes early today. And everybody's super happy. And, you know, you feel like you got a lot done and you get to go home early.
Yeah. Well, and the best thing, man, I love that. I've done that too. And what's so cool is when you end your rehearsal, but people still want to stay.
Yeah.
Like that's a good thing. And that's happened before where it's like, I mean, I've had my terrible rehearsals too, where it's been like 4 hours and everybody wants to die and it's like insane. But those times where it's like, no, okay, we're done. But people stick around and they're just jamming together. You know, they're hanging out together. That's the kind of culture you want to set.
Yeah. And one thing, you know, I think a lot of teams kind of struggle with is like, let's say the drummer doesn't really get how to play this one part of a song. How much time do you take to try to figure that out? And the vocalists are just standing around looking at Facebook or something, you know?
Yeah, if a musician shows up and they're not ready, I just shame them.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
the
a
whole
good
time. You know, we laugh.
Way to do
we
it.
laugh at them. No, I'm
laugh
just
at
kidding.
them. Yeah.
So on the one hand, so before I talk about that situation specifically, I'll just kind of talk the overall culture. So I always built a culture in my team where it was like, if you weren't ready, so if you came to rehearsal and you didn't know your stuff, we wouldn't shame you, but there was that internal sense of quality that was expected where you felt a little bit out of place, you know, and you didn't want that to happen again. And a lot of the times, you know, that caused people to raise their game. Yeah. But still, sometimes, you know, in the local church, like we're not just like some professional music environment. We want to be a place where people can grow. So if I sense that there's somebody on the team that's going to need some more work, like if it's a drummer, a lot of times what I would do, I would try to foresee that. And I would say, okay, we have a drummer here. Like you might be in a situation where you just, okay, your best drummer just went to college, which is like every worship leader ever all the time. Like you build a great team and then they go somewhere else, you know? And so you have a new guy who's, you know, maybe a little bit older and just doesn't really know how to play modern styles, who just needs a little work. So what I would do is foresee that. And what I would always do is I would meet early with that person. You know, whether it's like an hour early before rehearsal or another day. I know that's a little bit more time, but again, part of what it means to be, I think, a good worship pastor is to disciple people. So that's time well spent. And what I would do is, you know, throw on the click track with that drummer and practice with them. And we run through that song and run through the set before rehearsal. And that helped so much. And then when rehearsal got there, they felt more ready. So I think what it takes is just some advanced planning again, and to say, okay, who's on my team? And how can I prevent a catastrophe from happening at rehearsal? But still then there's those moments where people are just confused and you have to spend a little bit of extra time, and that's fine too, you know. I would just try not to belabor it, you know. If if you're sensing in the moment that this guitar player is just not going to get this part right now, move on. And then meet with them individually and try to work it out. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that's really helpful. I'm going to throw another scenario at you because this is like real life stuff, you know,
real life
worship
stuff
leaders deal with. What do you do if a member on the worship team consistently shows up without practicing on their own, and they say they've listened to the song, but thankfully Planning Center, you can go in and see if somebody's actually listened to the song. So, you know, what do you do when somebody doesn't come prepared to rehearsal consistently?
Yeah. This is where I think a lot of worship leaders go wrong, is because they let bad things fester for too long without confronting it. And then over time, the culture is then sort of like eroded, if that makes sense, you know? So what you have to do is talk with people one-on-one, you know? So if someone consistently shows up and they don't know their stuff, you got to pull them aside and say, hey man, you know, always kind of sandwich the conversation. You know, I really appreciate you. I'm so pumped that you're on this team, but here's the thing. You didn't come ready. How can we like prevent this from happening next time? You know, maybe just a couple days before, just put in 15 minutes of time just to kind of play through these songs, just get ready. And, you know, let's work on this a bit, you know? So it's like having those pastoral conversations. It's not like in the middle of rehearsal, you're like swearing at somebody on your team, you know, or just like freaking out in rehearsal. It's that one-on-one. Like you don't want to embarrass somebody. But having those one-on-one conversations with them. But I've also been in situations where it's like somebody on the team, you can tell they're just not playing something right. And then you kind of, you say to them like, hey, can you tweak this a little bit? And then they say something like, oh, so you don't want it like the recording. You know, it's almost like they get like super offensive, and I'm always like, you're gonna argue with me about like what's on the recording. It's like, so here's the thing, guys. Like we're working with people, you know, and it's great when people are just easygoing and have great attitudes, but sometimes it's like some people are just, they carry a little bit more baggage, you know, and sometimes you have to just let people go. Honestly, like if they're not showing up ready over time, or they have a bad attitude over time, like you have a responsibility to steward the culture of your team. You're not just there to make everybody happy or to give everybody a place. Like it's more important that you develop culture. And if through coaching and vision and one-on-ones, somebody just isn't submitting to the culture, they need to find another place, you know, and that's what's hard about leadership. You know, leadership is confrontation a lot of the times. And, you know, so it's just, it comes with the territory. Nobody likes it. If you do like confrontation, you probably have issues. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just like, it just comes with the territory, you know? And so, have those one-on-ones, and then, hopefully people will grow and change, you know?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. Sometimes the best thing for somebody on the worship team is for them to take a break from, you know, serving, because they have things that they need to work through, or maybe they are too busy and too stressed, and, you know, they're overwhelmed. And, you know, I think giving that out to somebody is sometimes the best thing to do.
Yes. I totally agree.
Yeah. So I think I may get emails from some people going like, David, how come you didn't talk about praying? Do you guys not pray as a worship team?
Yeah, well, yeah, I kind of briefly mentioned that when we talked about like connecting, and that whole point of building connection. Like that's a good time to like incorporate some prayer. So, but what I don't do in rehearsal is necessarily, you know, pray for 45 minutes. Prayer is important. Prayer needs to be a part of your culture. But doing prayer in a way that kind of works, you know, we've all been in those situations of team prayer where it's like, okay, guys, we're just going to take the next 10 minutes and we're going to pray. And we all just kind of stand there and nobody says anything. You know, and it's just kind of like awkward. But, what we've always done is we said in our church, like do popcorn prayers where it's like, don't let silence go by. If it's quiet, start to pray, start to declare something short, declarative prayers, and so getting in a circle and doing that at the beginning of your rehearsal, at the end of your rehearsal, I think that's huge. You need that. And then encouraging your team too, to be praying during the week. I think prayer should saturate rehearsals. It should saturate preparation and practice, like bass player. If you're, practicing your songs and you're getting your tone dialed in, make that a prayerful experience. Don't just get the part right, but pray the lyrics through, pray for the people they're going to be in church on the weekend, I don't think that's too bizarre for all of us to do, not just worship leaders, but really everybody on the team to own what they're doing in a prayerful manner and to pray for God to move. Because if we're not desperate for God to move, what are we doing? We're just sort of entertaining people with emotional songs. But if we're desperate for the presence of God to show up, that totally changes what we're doing,
Yeah, that's good. Man, you shared some really good stuff. I think every worship team around the globe should be listening to this and implementing a lot of this because I think it's, it doesn't, limit what denomination you are. It's not about what style you are. This is fundamental stuff, for worship teams. The culture and, worshiping together. A lot of things that we overlook a lot of times and don't really think about because we're trying to get the song nailed, as a team. So thanks for sharing everything you did. I would love for you to talk about real quick the worship album that you mentioned briefly in the beginning. What's it called? Where can people hear it?
Yeah. So my church team, Allison Park Worship, we have a new record called Here and Now, which comes out February 20th. So it'll probably already be out by the time this interview is live. It's going to be on all digital outlets, Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, all that stuff. Awesome. But we're just really excited about these songs, and I know a lot of churches are writing songs and releasing music. And so this is just our contribution to the kingdom. I think there's room in the church for as many churches that want to rise up and to write songs for their community. You know what I mean? I'm of the firm belief that I know there's a lot of worship songs out there, but there's always going to be new ways that we can write about glorious truth, And so this is just our attempt to do that. These are songs that, we're leading in our church, that our church is really loving. Super pumped. Was honored to do some co-writes too, with Michael Farron and Dustin Smith. Some of those guys are in on a couple of these songs, and we're just excited to be able to share them with more people and more worship leaders. So you can go to AllisonParkWorship.com or just kind of check it out. Allison Park Worship. The album is Here and Now.
Yeah, I think, even though there are thousands of worship songs out there, I think there's something really special about a church having, expressing their worship, from their community. I think there's something really special about that. And I think God loves hearing local churches, sing their own songs. So
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks so much for taking your time out of your RVing adventures and joining us today. And we look forward to just following your journey and seeing where God leads you next.
Yeah. Thanks, Wisdom. Thanks for what you do, man, and resourcing worship leaders. You've been doing that for so many years, man, kind of behind the scenes, just pushing other worship leaders out there. And so thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to We Are Worship. We would love to hear from you. You can email us your comments to hello@weareworshipusa.com. And don't forget to visit us online at weareworship.com for more resources and links to connect with us on your favorite social media platforms.